Welcome back to Start the Conversation, the podcast where we get into the real, the raw, and the remarkable stories of recovery from people in recovery. And we talk to clinicians, we talk to people in the field, working in the field of addiction treatment to tell you stories of success and give you knowledge and understanding about the subject and the field that we're in. And today we're gonna try to simplify something that is unsimplifiable. We're gonna dig into a very hard topic of distorted beliefs and how that can affect you for years, for decades, dealing with traumatic and life events. So, if you like this conversation, this discussion, hit that like, share, subscribe, bell, do all the things, and let's jump right into it. So today I have Vinny Stromolo back with us. You all know him as Boss Man, our CEO and Chief Clinical Officer here at Resolutions Healthcare, our inpatient facility, Hidden Oaks. And so let's get into it. We're going to be discussing a blog today titled The Shoulda, Coulda, Woulda's. And it's addressing distorted beliefs. And in a blog that Vinny wrote, he said, we use the word shoulda, coulda, wouldas countless times a day without really thinking anything of it. That is, until something happens. Just the fact we use these words when looking back at events or behaviors evokes a sense of regret. Often these words produce guilt or shame about a decision or action that we took. Vinny says, I have devoted my entire professional career to addressing these words when dealing with trauma and addictions. So, boss, where do you want to take us today?
Well, again, that's quite a bit right there. But I've been asked that so many times. There's no way to simplify the distorted beliefs and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that I have to deal with or have dealt with in therapy. But to make it kind of something that maybe can help people out there immediately would be just recognize that in your daily day, you will use those three words more times than you can ever imagine. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. And not we all, but my experience with clients, and there's been thousands of clients now that we've had come through our centers, and I've done the work over the last 35 years that always connect those three words to a negative kind of aspect.
Right.
I should have been able to do this. What if I did that? Couldn't I have done that? I want to immediately bring out a point. You'll never hear it, or I have never heard it say in a positive way. So understand there are positives too to shoulda, coulda, wouldas. If my event in my own life that I have spoken about in previous podcasts didn't happen back in 1986, say, I would have remained where I was, and my life would have never have gone this course over the last 35 years. I wouldn't have found my passion. I wouldn't have found my calling, my work. I would have stayed where I was.
You wouldn't have found all of us.
Exactly. So there's where I kind of help clients understand there are positives, but we just don't seem to think of them that way when we say shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, most of the time it's referring to, you know, I should have been home and this wouldn't have happened.
Right,
That person wouldn't have got sick and passed away.
right. So if you're thinking that way, excuse me, if you're thinking that way, you're automatically in a negative kind of mode. And belief systems are developed from events without getting too complicated, that things that we have to deal with in therapy, but for people to be able to understand is once an event happens in our lives, and again, they could listen to the podcast, there's a whole slew of events we can talk about that go on in our lives, but something that impacts us, um, and we develop a distorted belief about it. That sets us off and running over, like you started, years and decades of sometimes beating us ourselves up over events that really called for, again, we did the best we could, but we don't recognize that. So, again, the importance here is to understand that belief systems that we've developed, whether they be through childhood, if it was childhood trauma, or not even childhood trauma, family dynamics, you're brought up, your family has a high standard and you're not meeting it. And they use the words, well, you know what? You need to step it up, stop being so stupid, stop being a quitter. These kind of things that maybe you were brought up with, or you're a loser, or you're no good. These set our mindsets
Mm-hmm.
in motion. As events happen in our lives, then that starts playing a role. So that's how we get to having distorted beliefs about events. So again, without getting too complicated, we know when we get clients here and in my group, we talk about it. We can't go back and change. And none of us, if anyone knows out there how to go back and change an event
Let us
without
know.
a time machine, please let us know. I'd be the first one to enter that machine. We don't have that.
But would you though? Because would you go back and change that event, and then, like you said, you wouldn't?
That's another good point.
Ah,
Right. So there you go. There you go. So we have to accept, we should accept. There's a should in a positive direction. We should accept our lives, look at them, look at what's unresolved in our life versus what we feel is resolved,
yeah.
and work to strengthen our mind, body, spirit that we often preach about here. Because that's the key here. In my definition, without getting again too clinical, in my definition of trauma with resolution focused therapy, the definition is has a lot in common with what we use any psychology definition of trauma would have in it, except I add something that I don't see in other models, and that's why I went down that road. And that's your state of mind. So
Mm-hmm.
understand your state of mind, meaning your strength, mind, body, spirit. The stronger you are as an individual, the more capable you are of handling events in your life in a healthy way and come out of it without some leftover, unresolved, or distorted belief about that event.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because it's very important that people understand. And what do I base that on? My own life. My event, the first time happens, I'm not in a good state of mind. It takes me out. 4 years tumbling. 4 years later, same event happens, but I'm in a stronger place. I've done my work. I feel stronger. Event happens. Now I absorb the event. I process it. It's not pleasant. It's painful, but I don't get stuck there anymore because I'm in a healthier state of mind and I'm able to move past it and resolve it. So I think the key to today is to understand without getting too clinical, understand that if you've had events or unresolved stuff, baggage from your life, you'll hear people in relationships. Relationships kind of bring out the unresolved issues that we all have in our lives.
Definitely.
And people bring in their, you'll hear it referred to in a comical way a lot of times. That's your baggage.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Everybody brings in their own baggage, and then you have to kind of work through it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the less baggage you bring in, or the more work you do to unload your baggage or resolve it, the healthier your relationship's going to be.
Right.
So we have to recognize that your mind, body, spirit is the most important thing. again, we get back to you'll hear people. I don't. You ever heard of the empty nest
Yeah, yeah.
syndrome? Right. We use that phrase. Family therapists use that phrase. Kind of says, well, a couple raise their children. Children leave the home, and now they go through this empty nest syndrome. I don't believe in any of that. That the empty nest syndrome is another way of saying, no, you guys have slapped band-aids on yourselves, raised your children with band-aids on, covering the wounds that maybe you brought in, your baggage. And 20 years later, when children move out, the focus goes back on you two,
Right.
and the band-aid comes off. And you go back to resorting to earlier days in your relationship and what you brought to that relationship.
So could that be? I hear a lot of people say and believe that when you have kids and you're raising kids and everything, people will say, well, don't forget to date your wife, don't forget to be in love with your spouse, and
Right.
if you're spending all that time just focused
Uh-huh.
on the kids, and then when the kids move out, y'all aren't in love anymore, don't want to be together. Is that how much of that is really because you spent all that time focusing on the kids and fell out of love, or how much of that is I never really fixed anything from my
There
past?
you go. I couldn't have summed it up any better than what you just said. To me, I use relationships will bring out the issues that are unresolved. The easiest way to identify, and you just identified it. Think of it that way.
Okay.
You have unresolved issues. Let's call them just unresolved issues in your past. You meet someone. No, let me back up. You have unresolved issues. You're 20, 21, 22. You get anxious. You're feeling depressed. You don't like being alone. Good blog if they want to read. Alone again. Oh, what do? You notice you're not feeling as an individual. You're kind of sad seeing other people in relationships. You're not doing any work to understand what's making you feel that way.
Okay.
And then suddenly, symptoms are gone. Hey, everything's wonderful. I know immediately, and I talk about it in my group. I know immediately you either fell in love,
Mm-hmm.
someone's in your life now. You met someone, and suddenly you're not feeling any more of your symptoms. New job, suddenly you feel on top of the world. New location, you relocated, feeling wonderful. That's great. It's better than not feeling good. But understand that's a band aid. Something got slapped on. Internally, you were not in a healthy state of mind. And then something external entered and made you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's built on something outside,
Right.
meaning remove that outside force
Come crashing
and
down.
I come crashing back to the way I was. That should be a red flag for people to know it's okay. It's better than being in the state you were. But understand you still have work to do just because the symptoms aren't there any longer. So let's use your example. I fall in love. I
Mm.
meet somebody, I fall in love. I'm not feeling depressed. Hey, this is great. The anxiety is gone. Not feeling any pain. I'm not alone anymore. Wonderful. We get together, we get married, we have children, a couple of years, focus on the children, 10, 20. And I used the example 23 years in the previous blog because that was a client that I used for my group when I explain this. So now 23 years go by. You get to reach a point where the focus, like you just said, focus now was on the children for 20 years, 21 years, 22 years, wasn't on each other anymore, wasn't on the previous problems. Children now go off to college, children move out, they get their own families. Suddenly the focus goes back to you two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now again, you're going to go back. Do you fall out of love? Well, what's love? We can get into defining that. I think we were a pair that when we came together at the beginning, it was new and our symptoms went away. And then we had children and the focus went to the children. Point being, now the focus is back to you two, and then it depends on what happens in as a couple or in a relationship to determine whether I'm going to revert back. And in the example I use, divorce entered the picture. After 23 years, that person divorced, crash and burn. They went right back to isolation, being alone, feeling depressed, and anxiety. And there's the emotionally frozen in time back to the beginning.
Right.
So,
So if we're basing our symptom, if we have this symptom relief because of outward forces, relationship, job, we got these other things taking our mind off of our traumatic events, off our depression, anxiety, whatever the case may be. We could go years, decades without crashing and burning, but then something happens, we lose a job, we lose a family, we come back, those events pop back up, the symptoms come back because really we slapped a band-aid on it and we didn't do any real work for the last 2 decades. So the $1 million question, as how do we get to a point of fixing distorted beliefs?
I can I can go through what I would do in therapy, and that would take 7 months to 3 years of intensive therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But to give you the idea and what I teach clients, again, sobriety is instant, healing takes time. This is a healing process. But what you will need to ultimately, the cycle or phases you would have to go through. So I'll walk, we can intellectually say it now. I will put it out there. You're not going to be able to do it without guidance, without help, maybe professional counseling.
Right.
If you want your own internal growth and self reading, whatever you need to do, the process has to be similar to this. Let's use the example. An event happens, and I always use myself. Back in '86, an event happens. Immediately, I blame myself for my actions in that event. So now, once I blame myself, that's a distorted belief. It was my fault. When in reality, it wasn't. It was an event, natural event, death and dying issue that came up. But I was in a poor state of mind. So I looked at it as it was my fault. I didn't act quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next 4 years, my distorted belief that emotion, what I should do, and if a death and dying is an issue in our lives, if someone were to die or have a medical emergency, your normal emotions would be what? Grief,
Grief.
screaming, crying, yelling.
Could be anger, yeah.
Right. All happening as the event's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's normal. That's the way you want it. It needs to come out. Once the event happens and I blame myself, I immediately now interfere with the normal flow of that emotion and now turn it on me. It was my fault. So now I'm beating myself up unrealistically with a distorted belief, because in this case it wouldn't be. And don't let me forget to go back to it, because even if you are at fault for something, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Again, it means you just did a bad thing.
Right.
But in this case, I blame myself. So I spent 4 years doing that. The sequence has to be okay. 4 years later, I finally start processing it and saying, wait a minute. Back then, I wasn't in a good state of mind. An event happened. I did the best I could. I can accept that. I'm not perfect. No one is.
Mm-hmm.
I did the best I could, and it wasn't where I wanted it to be, but it's okay. I did the best I could. I have to recognize my imperfection. Once I do that, then it leads to me forgiving myself. Once I do that, that emotion goes back to where it needed to be. So that sequence can take quite a bit of time
Right.
for you. Just understand there is a process to bringing a distorted belief back to reality, and it can be done.
So we're not doomed is what you're saying.
Say what?
We're not doomed. I'm
Okay,
just
and I always say this. In my career, I've worked with some of the most severe cases of trauma you can imagine, and I've seen people come out of it and be able to have a functioning life. Um, so no one is doomed because of events that have happened, but it does take a lot of work to be able to do that. And remember what I said, even good people do bad things. That's a blog
another good
also.
blog.
So understand, even if something is your fault, doesn't mean you're supposed to punish yourself the rest of your life.
Right, right.
That serves no purpose. There's no positive angle to that. So if anyone is suffering from what they feel was their fault and caused an event, even if they did trigger that event, doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you got caught up, and good people do bad things sometimes. I just want to make that clear.
Amen. In your blog, you say, like I always teach, the search for understanding and inner peace is a journey, not a race. You know, and you mentioned earlier, recovery takes time. None of this that we're talking about is going to happen in the drop of a hat. It could take years to fix a distorted belief, to overcome a trauma in your past. It's not something that is done in 30, 60, 90 days. So I want our listeners to remember that. Don't go looking for a quick fix, because there really isn't one.
And we can say it all day long, but they're going to look for a quick fix. And
Right.
we see that. But then we see clients that come back like yesterday, who you had on your podcast, who recognize now as time's going by, it's a process. I can't bring you from A to D without going through B and C first. There is no jumping you over the line to get you to a point where you process faster. Processing. Each change changes your processing. What's the common denominator? Mind, body, spirit. Individual, internal work, not external. No, a relationship, you felt better, you still have issues to deal with.
Right.
Deal with them. Do the work. Mind, processing, belief systems, body, do something, walk, meditate, yoga, run, jogging, I don't care what, lifting weights, do something to keep your body as healthy as you can. Spirit, whether it's religious, whether it's spiritual, whether it's Eastern, Western philosophy, do something to give yourself some spiritual strength. If you work those three, you will get better and stronger as an individual. Individual. So that if that person leaves in the relationship, if you lose that job that you felt saved your life, if you relocated thinking that was going to change and all your problems are going to go away because you're starting over again, you will not get floored when relationship ends, the job ends, and your relocation didn't work out. It isn't going to be the band-aid being ripped off like what today is about.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself suddenly crashing and burning again, even though you've been doing great for years, you had a band-aid. Identify what it was that changed, and I will bet it was an external force that you thought was an internal strength, but it depended on something outside you. And anything you depend on or expect outside of you, beware. We talk about expectations.
Hmm.
So you're leaving your internal happiness, your life,
Up to somebody else.
up to somebody, something else outside of yourself. So that's today's lesson. Strengthen yourself regardless of
Yeah.
if symptoms have gone away.
Yeah.
Do the work. And by the way, there is no end. There is no end to this journey. It goes until we end,
Right.
until death. There's no such thing as I've reached
Right.
self actualization. I am at the top of the pyramid. No,
Yeah.
all of us are still on that journey, just so everyone understands that.
Amen. Well, that's a good lesson and a good podcast today. I think that's where we're going to end it. So, folks, if you've enjoyed this, again, check back with us next time. Hit that bell on YouTube. It'll notify you every time we put out a new video. And until the next time, y'all be safe and be sober. See you later.